Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Let's give a minute or two and then we will start.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hari Bol, Pratima Mataji, welcome. So we will commence in the interest of time. I'm sure over the next few minutes, devotees will gather. So first of all, a very good evening, Hare Krishna. Thank you for all the devotees for gathering today for this inaugural session of Sri Chaitanya Pravaha, the nectarian flow of the beautiful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'm very grateful that all of you have shown the eagerness to participate and hear this very special subject matter, which is so dear and close to all of our hearts. I just request everyone to please be on mute. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So we would like to begin this session today with prayers to Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Parishtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pracharane, Nirvishesha, Shunyavadi, Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Dvaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone. So today we are launching this inaugural series. Many of you have been already joining our classes. We have been discussing the Srimad Bhagavata for almost 2 years, and thanks for all those who enthusiastically participated in the detailed study of the Bhagavad Gita. Many of you are inspired. Many of you are now chanting even 16 rounds. Some are chanting 8, some are 10. So you've all made very wonderful progress. We're also discussing Bhagavatam on Saturday. And after discussion with majority of you, we felt that we should start a series to discuss an overview of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So by Krishna's blessings, Guru's blessings, and all the Vaishnavas' blessings, today is the day, one day after Snan Yatra, that we want to commence this series with the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. So before we actually get into the topic proper, in the spirit that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami himself, the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, said when he wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is proper to seek blessings from the senior devotees in this endeavor. Like always, we are most unqualified, spiritually and materially as well. At least I am. So I am not in any great capacity to do this, but I'm doing this for my own purification. And I seek the blessings of all of you in this small endeavor to try to taste a drop from the unlimited ocean of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. But before I go any further, I would like to invite His Grace Chiranjeeva Prabhu to give an inaugural address, and through the inaugural address, give his blessings for this small endeavor. I would like to give a brief introduction. I think most of you are aware, but some of you who are relatively newer to ISKCON may not have met Prabhuji, but you have heard about him, I'm sure. So I'd like to briefly introduce His Grace Chiranjeeva Prabhu. Let me just pin Chiranjeeva Prabhu also here. Just a minute. Yes, yeah, so that you can all see him as I'm introducing him. Hari Bol, Jai His Grace Chiranjeeva Prabhu ki Jai. So Chiranjeeva Prabhu is perhaps, I can say, the senior most devotee who's based now in Malaysia, or been in Malaysia. He joined ISKCON way back in September 1977 in Stockholm, Sweden. This is the time Prabhupada left the planet in November, and Prabhu connected with ISKCON a couple of months before that. Prabhu has lived as a brahmachari in his early years of Krishna consciousness, and Prabhu entered the Grihastha ashram in 1982. He spent some time in the ashram. After that, very soon he was active in the Sankirtan party, traveling all over Sweden distributing Prabhupada's books. He was one of the top book distributors in Europe, and he holds one of the biggest records of 304 Bhagavad Gitas in one day, Hari Bol, in Sweden. So recognizing Prabhu's leadership qualities, he was appointed as a coordinator for book distribution in all of Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland. Prabhu has also served as the production manager for the North European BBT, which was overseeing the production of Srila Prabhupada's books in over 20 languages, producing also the first Russian book outside of the Soviet Union. So Prabhu shared some of those beautiful episodes with me recently. In 1985, Prabhu was sent to Copenhagen, Denmark. He was the temple president and he served there for 10 years. And then he became the regional secretary for Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. In 1988, Prabhu returned to Malaysia. Prabhu is originally from here, to serve as a BBT regional manager for Indonesia and Thailand. And while living in Kuala Lumpur, Prabhu has served in Jagannath Mandir, Kuala Lumpur. We have worked closely with Prabhu when Prabhu was guiding very actively the BCVAC team. Prabhu was later invited in Auckland for to help with the new temple there, and Prabhu spent some time there, and later he moved to Melbourne along with his wife Chandravali Mataji and also children, daughter Krishnamai and son Krishna Charan. So in 2019, Srila Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj requested him to assist with the Malaysian Yatra, and Prabhu has been appointed as the co-regional secretary for Malaysia together with His Grace Simeshwara Prabhu. And Prabhu also conducts classes for devotees in China. So Prabhu is now semi-retired, and Prabhu and Mataji have now moved back to Malaysia to be closer to his service. And we look forward to active engagement with him. And Kuala Lumpur will be Prabhu's base, but he'll be traveling as his service requires. And he will also make occasional preaching trips to Europe. So much can be spoken about Prabhu. Prabhu is a very gentle as well as knowledgeable devotee. So without further ado, I will request His Grace Chiranjeev Prabhu to address all of us and inspire us and also shower his blessings. Prabhu, please. Thank you. You're on mute, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Fortune, Prabhu, you put me up there on such high pedestal. How am I going to live up to that? Om Gyana Timrandasya Gananjana Salakaya Shaksumunitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. First of all, I would like to say that this endeavor or yagya that is about to take place, performed by Gaurachandra Prabhu, is very laudable to hear, because after all, this is Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement that we are part of. So it is very important for all of us who are Gaudiya Vaishnavas to understand very deeply the nature, the characteristic, personality of Lord Chaitanya, his pastimes and his teaching. But of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. There's no way we can understand him completely. So we can understand him as much as he allowed himself to be understood by us. So I'll leave that part to Gaurachandra Prabhu as he unfolds the greatness and sweetness of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What I would like to touch on tonight will be a bit of a historical perspective on why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance and his teaching is so significant. So we all know, if we have read Bhagavad Gita, in one of the final instructions of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita was Sava Dhamman Parityajya, Mamikam Sharanamija, Aham Tvam Sava Papyebhyo, Moksha Yisma, Vasimasachara. that is, after describing so many different paths and religious principles and so on, Krishna said, Savadhamma Pratya, give it all up. And you just surrender unto me. And to emphasize the point, he didn't just say surrender unto me. He says, Eka, surrender unto me alone, leaving no doubts at all as to what he means. And I will free you from all sinful action. Yet people were hesitant. And for those who are hesitant, Krishna went even further. It's a Masuchaha. Do not worry. But because Bhagavad Gita was spoken towards the end, and when the looming appearance, the time for Kali Yuga to appear, due to the influence of Kali Yuga, people were not picking up this instruction of Krishna. And as Kali Yuga progresses, people were deviating further and further away from Vedic principles, and it comes to the point where, in the name of religious principles, although in the Vedas there are prescriptions for different yagyas, sacrifices, and even animal sacrifices, not so much as to kill the animal, but it's also to prove the validity or purity of the brahmanas who are performing these yagyas, the proper chanting of the mantras, and so on. So the animal actually get a new life. But in Kali Yuga, this kind of sacrifice is forbidden. And yet people, although not qualified, they continue to perform these sacrifices for the sake of eating meat. That's how far and how degraded society became as Kali Yuga progresses. So feeling out of compassion for them, Lord Buddha appeared. And in order to save them from committing further sinful activities, perform sinful activities is one thing. But using in the guise of religious principle, let's make it even worse. So to prevent that, he's telling people, don't follow the Vedas. Essentially, anyone who don't follow the Vedas are considered as atheists. So he said, don't follow the Vedas. Why is Krishna teaching atheism? He said, but you follow me. So indirectly, he's cheating them. You follow me, but because he's an incarnation, he's an avatar, they're following him, they also get the benefit. And he preaches the principle of ahimsa, non-violence. That's why it's very difficult to understand nowadays, where a certain section of the school of Buddhism, where they are not vegetarian, they eat meat. This is the whole basis of Lord Buddha's teaching is ahimsa. And then later on, Shankaracharya appeared, and he directed people back to the Vedas. So Lord Buddha was teaching Sunyavad. Everything is nothing. There's everything from nothing. One time, Prabhupada was asking, so what's the teaching of the Buddhists? They become nothing. He said, really? After all those efforts, so much austerity and sacrifice, and they become nothing? Nothing to show? So Shankaracharya brought everyone back to the Vedas, but and his teaching was in the form of a disguise. He teaches monism. It's not all nothing, but it's all one. There's not too much difference. It's all one. We all one regard, everything is Brahman. And after Shankaracharya came Ramanujacharya. He managed to find contradiction in the teaching of Shankaracharya and said that, no, it's because if the jiva is under illusion now, avidya, how can there be God? So there must be a difference between these two Brahman, the jiva and the Param Brahman. So he was emphasizing that we actually, there's some difference there. And this world is not, is real. No, it's not that it's unreal, it's real. And Nimbarkacharya came after Ramanujacharya. Nimbarka is the leader of the Kumaram Sampradaya, and Ramanujacharya was the head of the Sri Sampradaya. And he came and taught that he called it a Beda, whereby he said he gave the idea that the dualism, non-dualist, which is it distinguished. There's God, and there's Jiva, and there's Metta. And we are all part of the Super Brahman, but separate. And finally, Madhvacharya, and out of his Acharya, Madhvacharya was the first one to openly move away from Shankaracharya's teaching of oneness. He stressed on the point of we are all different. We are different from God. In this way, all these different acharyas came and gradually prepared the ground from Buddhism to Sunyavadi to Monism to Vishwashisha's Advaita and Veda, and then coming Madhvacharya for the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to introduce a supreme philosophy of Achinja Veda Tattva. This argument of oneness and difference has been going on for long time. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and taught Achinja Veda Tattva. Yes, we are all one, but at the same time we are different. This is quite inconceivable, how we can be one and at the same time different. One in the sense we are one in quality with the Supreme, with Brahman. At the same time, we are not Brahman, we are different in quantity. And Prabhupada gave the example of the seawater. You take a drop of seawater, it has the same quality as the sea, it's salty, but it is not the ocean. But the ocean consists of many droplets of seawater. So in this way, prepare, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching this philosophy. And we, in this ISKCON movement, is a beneficiary and the benefits of this supreme philosophy. And we can see we are appearing at a very unique or very special and time in history. So much groundwork has been prepared by all the acharyas previous to us. And then if we look at our own qualification, what qualification do we have to be recipient of this supreme philosophy that is so complete, that gives us a full understanding of the Siddhanta of Vedic philosophy. So that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance is so significant, and his teachings are so significant. And these classes that you're going to hear as it unfold will reveal more and more who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really is. So thank you very much. That's a bit of a history.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Chiranjeev Prabhu, for agreeing to give your blessings and give this address on the significance of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, and especially the part of how Lord Chaitanya is the pinnacle of the presentation of the Vedantic philosophy, which of course started from Vyasadeva in terms of the Vedanta Sutras, and through the various commentaries of the various acharyas, Shankaracharya onwards, how it culminated in the topmost teaching of Achintya Veda Tattva. And through the grace of Srila Prabhupada and his followers, we are recipient of that topmost philosophy. So thank you very much. And that indeed is going to be the subject matter that permeates the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings is all about this Achintya Veda Tattva, focused on Krishna Prem. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Our humble obeisances to you.
If you excuse me, I believe I have something on, but I will be joining you.
Sure, Prabhu. Sure, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. So with that, I also take this opportunity to seek the blessings of all the devotees. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanachalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंश कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरं। हरि ओम तत्सत्। वंदे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंदौ सहोदितौ गौड़ोदये पुष्पवन्तौ चित्रौ शंदौ तमोनुदौ। The very beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, this beautiful verse glorifies Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. It glorifies Gauranga and Nityananda as comparing them to the sun and the moon who have simultaneously arisen on the horizon of the Gauda Desh, West Bengal. So the sun is bright during the day normally, the moon is bright during the night, but the sun and the moon have simultaneously arisen and they are spreading the light. What kind of light? They are spreading the light by which the darkness of ignorance is being dissipated and all good fortune is being bestowed on all living entities, especially the greatest good fortune of Krishna Prema. So some devotees may be wondering why out of all the books and out of all the various topics to be discussed, why have we chosen Chaitanya Charitamrita? So I want to spend a couple of minutes on that particular point. One is, while our goal as followers of Lord Chaitanya is Krishna Prema, it is also true that we cannot achieve the goal of Krishna Prema without getting access to Lord Chaitanya. That is something wonderful. Lord Chaitanya has come to give Krishna Prema, but Krishna Prema, the key for Krishna Prema, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has. So we need so much to access the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. It's so important. Like His Grace Chiranjeev Prabhu was mentioning, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. In fact, the combined appearance of Radha and Krishna. And we'll be discussing this particular philosophical principle in great detail because the first few chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita go into great detail on this topic. So I'm not going to spend time now on that. But Radha and Krishna together came as Lord Chaitanya to give Krishna Prema. That Krishna Prema, which is extremely, extremely difficult for even the most exalted souls to attain. Bhakti Vinod Thakur has written in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya of how even Lord Shiva cannot enter, finds it difficult. Lakshmi Devi cannot enter. Lord Shiva can enter, but he is on the border of Ras Leela. He cannot enter fully inside. And so many great personalities and perfected souls are also unable to gain entry. So where do we stand that we can get entry into the divine confidential pastimes of Radha and Krishna? And that is where the personality of Lord Chaitanya comes into picture. How exactly he makes that Krishna Prema available, we will discuss in detail as Chaitanya Charitamrita unfolds. But suffice to mention for now that without the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, it is impossible for us to attain this most highest of goals, especially for us most of us who are ordinary conditioned souls, that too in Kali Yuga. So let us remember that it is important for us to access Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. And sadly, we find that even over so many years after being connected to Krishna consciousness and practicing sadhana of bhakti, many devotees are not sufficiently familiar with the personality, teachings, and pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If it is so important to access Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, then how important it is to understand him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not just a teacher of philosophy of how to attain Krishna Prema, but the special position of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that in this particular appearance, and we say appearance because technically Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not even an incarnation, because he is not Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. He's not just an incarnation, he's Radha and Krishna themselves combined. He's Krishna himself in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Why? Because Krishna decides to appear in the role of a devotee of himself to teach the world through his own example of how we can become a devotee. So no longer theoretical teaching, no longer just philosophy, no longer even explaining the practice, demonstration. Correct? Yeah. Just like in school, first we learn the theory in the classroom, then the teacher explains how the lab is to be performed. But some of us who may not be so bright still don't figure out what is what. So the teacher actually takes us to the lab and says, you all watch now, I will do the experiment. You closely watch what I'm doing. Because sometimes you read instructions also not good enough. Cannot understand. Take a beaker in chemistry. What is beaker, madam? I don't know. Oh, this is what a beaker looks like. Heat this liquid in a test tube. Oh, how to heat? So a demonstration is very important, especially for those individuals who are not familiar with the subject. Isn't it? Anything. What is better, to go to a cooking class where somebody is actually cooking and showing, or just reading a recipe book? So in that spirit, Krishna himself comes down in Kali Yuga as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to set the example of an ideal devotee of Krishna. Again, this point, I'm just giving glimpses. We will be discussing all these points in great detail as we go through Chaitanya Charitamrita, because Chaitanya Charitamrita discusses these ideas and concepts in great detail. So I'm just touching them because today is inaugural class. Today is only appetizer. Main course will come later. So please bear with me. Today I'm going to give a brief overview of what all we are going to cover and how we are going to study and how we are going to proceed, so you get some idea of what we are about to do. So like I mentioned, it's very important to understand Lord Chaitanya, and when we get attached to Lord Chaitanya, when we learn from the example of Lord Chaitanya and his associates, the ideal character, behavior, qualities of the Vaishnavas, then living a Krishna conscious life with Krishna Prem as the goal becomes so much more easier. It becomes relatable. Now I have seen the teacher perform it. Now I know. Of course, we may still make mistakes, and that's why we have our immediate guides, our Shiksha and Diksha gurus and other Vaishnavas to continue to guide us. But at least we have this one big example. So that is why we decided to embark on this study. So Srila Prabhupada would explain in terms of what is the position of Chaitanya Charitamrita amongst other scriptures. That is also another point which I wanted to take the opportunity today to discuss. Srila Prabhupada would explain like this, and he explains this in I think the preface or the introduction of the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself, Prabhupada says that the preliminary study of the philosophy of spiritual life is the Bhagavad Gita. Preliminary study. We think that, oh, I know Bhagavad Gita, I know everything. Bhagavad Gita is preliminary study to familiarize ourselves with the basic concept, and the Bhagavad Gita culminates in the supreme instruction, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchah. That abandon all varieties of religion and surrender to me. Of course, Krishna just before this verse also explained the process of connecting to him. Man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mame vaishati satyam te pratijane priyoshime. Think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your obeisances unto me. If you do this, you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear devotee. So Krishna gave that instruction very clearly. And after that, the Lord wound up his pastimes. Okay, so teacher gave theory class and teacher left. But it is said, as soon as Krishna left the planet, who came? Krishna himself came back from the other door. Krishna left from one door and came back from the other door. From the other door, he came in which form? The Srimad Bhagavata. The Srimad Bhagavata itself explains that when Krishna left, all the religious principles took shelter of the Bhagavad. Now, Bhagavad is such an important scripture because the Srimad Bhagavad elaborates on the final instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita says, become a pure devotee of Krishna and surrender fully to him. And the Bhagavatam is full of this topmost conclusion: Bhagavan, Bhakta and Bhakti. So many pastimes of the Lord and his various devotees and how they achieved pure devotion. So many instructions on pure devotion. So Prabhupada calls the Bhagavatam as the graduate study in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada says that the Chaitanya Charitamrita begins where the Bhagavatam ends. Prabhupada says the Chaitanya Charitamrita is the postgraduate study of Krishna consciousness. Postgraduate. This is the highest. Because in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna himself comes to give live demonstration. If anybody has still not understood what the Gita speaks, what the Bhagavatam speaks, here I am, I have come. I'm going to live a life demonstrating the philosophy, the principles, the practice, everything you need to know. I'm personally coming in Kali Yuga, not Satya Yuga, so that you cannot relate to, because sometimes Satya Yuga stories will say, oh, this is, Satya Yuga, cannot relate to it. 500 years ago, Krishna came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's why Chaitanya Charitamrita is considered the postgraduate work. And that's why Prabhupada is very careful to say that do not try to jump to Chaitanya Charitamrita. Have a fundamental understanding of Bhagavad Gita, which we have already studied. Ideally go through Bhagavatam. Of course, it is not a must that one must complete Bhagavad before one studies the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We all are already discussing the Bhagavatam. We are already in the 4th canto. We have discussed canto 1, 2, 3, 4. So now in parallel, we are starting the study of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, how are we going to go through the study of Chaitanya Charitamrita? This is important for me to explain. Chaitanya Charitamrita is a very huge work. Chaitanya Charitamrita contains roughly 11,519 verses. 11,000 519 verses across 62 chapters. Some of these chapters, the Gita and Bhagavatam have 50, 60, sometimes 70 verses. Some of the chapters in Chaitanya Charitamrita have 200, 300 verses also. So it sounds 62 sounds small, but 11,519. The Bhagavatam is 18,000. The Bhagavatam is a little bit more vast, but Chaitanya Charitamrita is sizable. It has a lot of quotations, even though the work is predominantly written in Bengali. There are many Sanskrit quotations because within the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are around 851 Sanskrit verses quoted across 53 scriptures. So it is a very scholarly work. It is not just a philosophical work. It is not just a biographical work. It is also a profoundly philosophical work. And it was designed to be like that. So what we are going to do, if we are going to go, we are not going to go through sequentially the 11,519 verses. Otherwise, it will take us, I do not know, I haven't even made an attempt to calculate, 10 years or so. So the idea of this particular series called Sri Chaitanya Pravaha. Pravaha means the flow. So we want to get an overall idea of the flow of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are going to go through the key pastimes and the key philosophical presentations of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We will try to keep it sequential according to the chapter sequence. In some cases, we may have to adjust it based on the nature of the flow, but predominantly we will try to keep the flow across the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I want to re-emphasize, this is not verse by verse. This is a overview course of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The overview itself, I don't know how long we are going to take, perhaps a year. Let's see how long it takes. But we will cover roughly maybe a chapter in a particular session. Now, I'm not committing that I will complete a chapter because some chapters are vast, some chapters are simple. Sometimes we may cover half a chapter, sometimes we may cover a complete chapter, sometimes we may cover more than a chapter. Wherever there are philosophical discussions, we may become a bit slower in the flow, and we will have to adjust that. But the idea is we will continue to be progressive. And again, not all concepts and all aspects and all details of the Chaitanya Charitamrita will be covered, because again, that will take too long. The idea is to cover the principal details of the pastimes and the principal teachings amongst the various conversations. So first, the word Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada explains this. The word Chaitanya means living force. Those who are familiar with Hindi, Sanskrit, Marathi, and other North Indian languages, perhaps in South also they use this word Chaitanya. I believe so. I'm not very sure. But this Chaitanya word indicates living force. In very simple words, consciousness, a living force. And Charita means character and Amrita means immortal. So in very simple words, Chaitanya Charitamrita translates to the immortal character of the living force. What is the immortal character of the living force? Jivera Swarup Hoi Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnasya Tatastha Shakti Veda Veda Prakash. The eternal nature of the living self is pure Krishna Prema, is Krishna consciousness. And that is why it's very interesting, if you note, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the name that he was given by his Sannyasa Guru, even though his Diksha Guru is Srila Ishwarapuri, his Sannyas Guru, Srila Keshav Bharati Maharaj, gave him the sannyasa name Shri Krishna Chaitanya. This is very beautiful. Again, within his sannyas name, the word Chaitanya. What does the word Chaitanya again mean here? Consciousness. And what does Krishna Chaitanya mean? Consciousness of Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's name itself means Krishna consciousness. Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Sri is Radharani. Krishna Chaitanya. So beautiful, isn't it? So this book and the personality of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are all about pure Krishna consciousness, pure Krishna prema. So we want to spend a little bit of time understanding how the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself is structured. But before getting into the structure of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and why I'm going to go through this is so that you understand, because one of the purposes of this class is if some of you are interested to do a study along as we are going through the weekly classes. Like when we did Bhagavad Gita, we encouraged the same thing. Now we are also doing the Bhagavatam, we have encouraged the same thing. And many devotees are doing that. Some choose to do it, some others may find it difficult to catch up because of various commitments. But if you can do that as a study along, that is very wonderful. So what does study along mean? It means that for every class, we will be briefly indicating what are the chapters or topics that we are covering in that particular chapter. So today I will tell you what are the topics that I have covered today. So today we are covering from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you have the set, or even if you access the online version on vedabase.net, we are covering the introduction, the preface, and the foreword. Introduction, preface, and foreword. I think all put together maybe some 20-25 pages, roughly. I haven't counted, but maybe of that order. Maybe a few plus or minus. Not everything in that I'm covering today, because if I go through all the concepts and all the points, it will be very prolonged. But I'm picking some key ideas and sharing them with you so that we have the sufficient context before we get into the scripture proper. So before we go into the structure of Chaitanya Charitamrita, I want to explain the source of Chaitanya Charitamrita and how Chaitanya Charitamrita has been compiled. Chaitanya Charitamrita was compiled by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, a disciple of Raghunath Das Goswami, on the instructions of the Vaishnavas. But just some history before that, because Chaitanya Charitamrita, while it is considered the most authentic and most comprehensive biography of Lord Chaitanya, it is not the only biography. Amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, there were already, actually there are many, but there were two works which are of significant importance and are accepted and read even up to this day on the life and pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'll briefly share them because Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami himself acknowledges them and has also referred to those books for various reasons, and we'll discuss those as well. So first is Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Bhagavat preceded Chaitanya Charitamrita and was compiled by Vrindavana Das Thakur. Vrindavana Das Thakur is known as the Vyasa of Lord Chaitanya's Leela. Krishna Leela, Vyasa wrote down all the scriptures of Chaitanya Leela. The Vyas is said to be Vrindavana Das Thakur. This book, Chaitanya Bhagavat, very sweet, but primarily focused on the early pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The later pastimes, including sannyas. Vrindavan Das Thakur himself said that the book has become so voluminous that I'm not going to write about the later pastimes. So he stopped. He wrote about the early pastimes and a little bit on the Lord's Grihastha pastimes. And he stopped. It's quite a voluminous book. I have that book in my own library collection as well. Very sweet, very beautiful, very elaborate descriptions of the Lord's early pastimes. So he didn't go too much into the details into the later pastimes. Then another authentic biography is Chaitanya Mangal, written by Srila Lochana Das Thakur. Lochana Das Thakur is a disciple of Narahari Sarkar, and he wrote his particular verse, which is actually a poetic work based on the diaries of Murari Gupta. Murari Gupta was one of the very close associates of Lord Chaitanya in his early days. And he maintained a Kadacha. Kadacha means a diary, a handwritten chronicle. I think it was called Shri Krishna Chaitanya Charita, in which he had written. And many other biographers referred to those notes of Murari Gupta for the early pastimes. And Chaitanya Mangal was written by Lochana Das Thakur referring to those diaries. So it's a very poetic verse, around 11,000 verses. Huge. And mostly again it covers the early pastimes and some preaching related pastimes as well. It is considered a very rasatmaka shastra. Because it's a poetic work, it is mainly intended not so much as a biographical work, but as a beautiful literary work to taste the sweetness of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So there was a strong need felt within the Vaishnava society at the time of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the 17th century that we must have one comprehensive work on the life and pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was fortunate to learn on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime from Raghunath Das Goswami and the other Vaishnavas. And Srila Haridas Pandit and various other devotees insisted to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He was staying on the bank of Radhakund in Brajdham. His bhajan kutir, the room where he wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita, is still there, and many of us have visited there, taken blessings. Many devotees, great souls approached him and said, "You are most qualified. Please compile a work which covers extensively the life as well as teachings of Lord Chaitanya," because there wasn't one comprehensive work. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was very hesitant. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is an extraordinarily humble soul. Extraordinarily humble. If you actually go through the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the way he positions himself, he practically demeans himself and says that I am nothing. But because he was instructed by the Vaishnavas and he felt so much responsibility because he had received so much knowledge to share that and record that for the future generations, finally he agreed to compile this work. In fact, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, because at the time when he actually wrote this work, even though I do not remember what was his exact age, he was very aged. I think practically in the 90s, if I'm not wrong, 80s or 90s. His age when he took to writing this book. He himself says that I don't know how I am writing this book. My hands are shaking. My body is so frail. I don't know how long I am living, but only by the blessings of Krishna, the Vaishnavas, Guru, I am able to perform this seva. And such an amazing work, such clarity of thought, such beautiful quotation of scripture. You'll be amazed at such a ripe age. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami managed to write a beautiful book. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami leveraged on all these other works as well and referred to them. But even though he referred to them, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was so humble that he was careful to not go into too much detail on those pastimes which have already been covered in great detail. For example, by Vrindavan Das Thakur in Chaitanya Bhagavata, just out of respect. So in some places, he gives only a brief narration of the pastime and says, for more details, refer to Chaitanya Bhagavata. He was so humble because he felt, he has already written. It's not nice for me to. He is the Vyasa of Chaitanya Leela. How can I supersede him? So that was his humble consciousness. So in many places, he says that wherever these pastimes have been described earlier by these great souls, I will not go into too much details. But quite a significant part of the pastimes of the middle part of the Lord's life, Madhya Leela, and the later part of the Lord's life were not recorded, and he made a special effort to record them in great detail. So this became, and the work was so wonderful and so much appreciated by the devotee community, because it was both a philosophical as well as a biographical work. And it is considered today the most authentic and most often referred to biography of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So briefly trying to explain to you the structure of Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, as I mentioned, 11,519 verses are divided into three parts: Adi Leela, Madhya Leela, and Antya Leela. Adi means beginning, Madhya means middle, Antya means end. Very simple. Okay. So in simple words, three cantos. Beginning, early part of life, middle part of life, and the later part of the life. Of whose life? Of course, of the life and pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Adi Leela covers Lord Chaitanya's pastimes up to, right from his appearance, up to his Sannyasa Leela. And is again primarily based on Murari Gupta's diaries, as we mentioned earlier, because he was the one who chronicled them. And here also many childhood pastimes, which are described in Chaitanya Bhagavata in great detail, he has just hinted at. So this part of the Lord's life is his first 24 years, from appearance to 24 years, is Adi Leela. Because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas at 24. Correct? At 24, we get out of college and take a job. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas at 24. And why he took sannyas, of course, will be a beautiful subject matter of the discussion of the end part of the Adi Leela. So when we come there, we'll discuss in great detail of the circumstances leading to the sannyas of Lord Chaitanya. So that's Adi Leela. Then the middle part of the Lord's life covers roughly 6 years. So from 24, after 24 up to 30. So you can say 25 to 30, 6 years. During this period, Lord Chaitanya, after sannyas, traveled extensively in South India. So his detailed travel and his preaching exploits across South India are discussed in the Madhya Leela. The Madhya Leela also includes, after the Lord came back from South India, and also on his way, he toured various other places. He went to Prayag, he went to Vrindavan also, he went to Kashi, Varanasi, and a few other places. So the Lord's preaching exploits there and his various beautiful conversations that Lord Chaitanya had with various great personalities are also recorded in the Madhya Leela. Approximately 6 years of his pastimes, and primarily based on the diaries of Swarup Damodar Goswami. Who's Swarup Damodar Goswami? When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, and especially later when he was in Puri in his Antya Leela, Swarup Damodar Goswami was the person who was the personal secretary of Lord Chaitanya. He was with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all the time. And he was noting down what is happening day to day. Oh, today Lord Chaitanya performed this pastime. Oh, today this happened, this happened, this happened. This person visited. This is what the Lord said. So he chronicled, just like Murari Gupta chronicled the early part, a lot of the Madhya Leela. Of course, Madhya Leela, Swarup Damodar Goswami wasn't himself present, but he collected a lot of information from those who were with the Lord. And he noted a lot of this information in his diaries. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami both referred to the diaries and also he had heard from Raghunath Das Goswami and the other Vaishnavas about the Lord's pastimes. So Madhya Leela is 6 years, and the Antya Leela of Lord Chaitanya is the last 18 years of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's manifest pastimes, which were in Puri Dham. And why this Antya Leela is very special? Because this Leela of the last 18 years is of Lord Chaitanya, who spent time in seclusion, privately experiencing the deepest ecstasies of intense separation from Krishna. Krishna in the mood of Radharani, feeling separation from Krishna. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was staying in Gambhira, a room in the house of Kashi Mishra, a little distance away from Jagannath Mandir, where he experienced all these topmost ecstasy. So they are chronicled and discussed. Very, very beautiful, amazing pastimes. Antya Leela, 18 years. So if you add all these, what is it? 24?
48.
Plus 6 plus 18, correct. All together 48 years. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested his divine pastimes on this planet only for 48 years. The Lord appeared in 1486 AD and disappeared around 1534 AD. 48 years only. But such a profound impact. 500 years later, we are still discussing and we are trying to learn from every word and every pastime of his. So that is briefly the structure of Chaitanya, of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Adi Leela, Madhya Leela and Antya Leela. And of course, we will go through these Leelas in that sequence. So also to just mention to you that while our primary source is Chaitanya Charitamrita for the purpose of the overview, I will sometimes take the liberty for certain pastimes to narrate some details from Chaitanya Bhagavata, with your permission. Because some of these pastimes have been described in brief, but the detail is in Chaitanya Bhagavata. So I will do that. So, you know, why I'm telling you upfront is then you will scratch your head. I read Chaitanya Charitamrita, this I don't find here. From where Prabhu created this concoction. So it is not concoction, it is from Chaitanya Bhagavata. So I may not mention it explicitly, this is from here, this is from here, but just so that you keep that in mind, I wanted to mention that to you. So as I mentioned earlier, for today's class, we are covering the introduction, preface and foreword. So I strongly encourage devotees either to purchase Chaitanya Charitamrita or to refer to the online version. I have a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita, physical one as well. I have, of course, the Bhagavatam set also and other books also. So I prefer to read if possible, but wherever you want, you can also use the app, Vedabase app, or go to the website and read from there. It is good if you can read along. Of course, I understand that it is not always possible to keep up with the pace of reading along, but because this is an overview class, even though you may not read through all the purports in detail, I will strongly encourage at least to read quickly through the verses and the translations after we have done the class, so that what we have discussed will be better assimilated and you will get many more details which I may have skipped, and in that way you will develop a very deep appreciation and attachment for Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita is so sweet to recite and hear as well. So before we conclude the conversation for today, just 2 more points. We are at 10 o'clock, dot on the hour. So just 2 more points. I'll just take 2 more minutes. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, when he writes Chaitanya Charitamrita, of course, he is so humble, he's seeking the blessings. He's seeking not only the blessings of the Lord and the Gurus, he's seeking the blessings of his readers. So can you imagine, he's seeking all of your blessings, even as he's reading. He's saying, not even the readers now, even the readers who are going to read Chaitanya Charitamrita in the future, I'm seeking their blessings. That is the humility of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami petitions Lord Gopinath. He especially prays to Gopinath. Why Gopinath? Because Gopinath is the Lord of the Gopis. Krishna in Ras Leela is Gopinath, which is the topmost pinnacle of Krishna's pastimes. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is petitioning the blessings of Lord Gopinath by saying, may that Gopinath, the master of the gopis, Krishna, bless you. He's blessing all of us. May you become blessed by Gopinath. So please receive the blessings of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He's giving us his blessings as well, because with his blessings and the blessings of our past acharyas and Mahaprabhu himself and Krishna, we can try to understand a little bit. This is a postgraduate subject matter. What can we understand? But doesn't matter. Sometimes even if we cannot fully understand, even if it passes over us a little bit, at least we'll be touched a little bit. And in that way, we'll become purified. We don't understand scripture the first time we read it. We continue to read it. We slowly start understanding and relishing it deeper and deeper and deeper. So of course, we cannot wait for the day, because that day will not come if we don't start our journey. So that is the blessing that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives, that just as Krishna attracted the gopis with the sound of his flute, that Krishna will also attract our heart to him by reading the transcendental vibration of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And that is his blessing. So in that spirit, so the goal of this whole Pravaha series is exactly what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has said, which is, we want our heart to be attracted to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the goal that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give, Krishna Prema. Then we will consider our series successful. So of course, I do not claim to have any special qualities. Some of you may say, oh, why Prabhu, you are qualified to speak Chaitanya Charitamrita. No, I'm not claiming any special qualification or special privilege to present these pastimes. Somehow I've been fortunate. I've been hearing these pastimes since my early years in Krishna consciousness from His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, who is especially well known as one of the very sweet narrators of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime. Similarly, His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj is also popular within the society as a very beautiful narrator of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I've been fortunate to hear, and somehow when the katha comes from the lips of great devotees who have great taste, it also touches us in some small way. So actually, I'm doing this exercise mainly for my own purification. And I thought that since I'm doing this, it might as well extend that opportunity to others who may want to also bathe in the Pravaha. Correct? When a river flows, Pravaha means a flow, like a river. How much you cannot drink the river, right? You can jump into the river, you can bathe in the river, you can drink as much as you want, but that's all you can do. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami himself says, I am a small bird and the sky of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes is unlimited. So how high can I fly? The sky is unlimited. I can only fly as I can. Every bird has his own capacity to fly. So that is true for all of us. So I claim no special ability or qualification. This is an exercise of self-purification. And parallelly, we will develop hopefully some more knowledge and some appreciation and some attachment, like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has mentioned. So whatever I've heard in Parampara, whatever is presented in the books and by the various acharyas, we will make a sincere attempt to present in front of you. So I seek the blessings of all the devotees. So having said that, I'm going to stop my address. And I'm just going to open up the floor to see if there are any quick questions that anybody has on what we have discussed today. Then we can quickly take it. And the intention is that this class will be just a quick last point. This class will be every Wednesday, 9 p.m. We keep it at 9 p.m. mainly for the reason that devotees can attend. Devotees, if we keep earlier, the problem is they are sometimes busy in their household duties and so many other things. So after a lot of trial and error, we found that this time is suited to the most. So please try to join as far as possible. We are also recording the classes. We are also doing a live stream on YouTube. So you can hear that either live or you can watch the recordings. But of course, live is always wonderful. So that's please try to do that. And please feel free if you think that there is value in these classes. Again, there are so many wonderful reciters of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I claim no special value beyond them. But if you feel that there is value and others may be benefited, feel free to share the link for these classes with them. And if this serves them and inspires them in some way, I'll be happy to have been of service. Yeah. So I'm opening up the floor. If anybody has any comments or questions, yeah, you can unmute yourself and speak. Beautiful.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Sridharji, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, how many verses are there in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat?
I have not counted because the Chaitanya Bhagavat that I have is not in the individual verse form, but is a translation in English, and it is not given verse by verse. But just the translations without commentary is a book which is this thick, 2.5, 3 inches. Just translations. So, but anyway, we can research that. I'm sure we can find that out, but I do not know on top of my head how many.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
But I think it is roughly of the same size, same length as Chaitanya Mangal, I think, around there. Yeah, but interesting. I will try to see and find out. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. Anything else? Okay. So if not, thank you very much. I'm very grateful to all of you who joined. And I hope that this has been of value to all of you. And please do join us every Wednesday. And for those who are already joining our Bhagavatam series on every Saturday, please continue. We will still be continuing with the Bhagavatam series at Saturday 9 p.m. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Sai Gaura Sitanath Premanandi. Hari Hari.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna and thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you, Sachi Priya Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Vrinda Priya Mataji. Hare Krishna.